the great myth of work-life balance. I'm going to jump right into this video today, but before I do, be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into this lie we have all been sold.
We were told that with the right balance, we could have it all. A great career, a happy family, and personal time. But if that's true, then why does life still feel overwhelming? Imagine this. It's Monday morning. Your alarm goes off, and you're instantly pulled into the chaos of the day. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Emails flood in before you've even had a chance to fully wake up. You rush through breakfast, attend back-to-back meetings, try to squeeze in a quick workout, and promise yourself that tonight you'll spend quality time with your family. But the hours slip away, and by evening, you're too exhausted to be present. Still, you tell yourself, tomorrow I'll get the balance right. But what if tomorrow is no different? What if each day is just another attempt at balancing a life that feels like a delicate tower of spinning plates? One misstep, and it all comes crashing down. For decades, we've been sold a dream, the dream of work-life balance. The idea that with the right routine, a bit of discipline, and enough motivation, we can perfectly juggle our careers, personal lives, hobbies, relationships, and self-care. We're told we can have it all, as long as we master the art of balance. But let me ask you, has anyone ever shown you this perfectly balanced life? Have you met someone who effortlessly manages their career without sacrificing family time? Who pursues their passions without neglecting their responsibilities? Who maintains perfect mental health despite the pressures of daily life? Or is it more likely that the people you admire, the ones who seem to have it all together, are just better at hiding their struggles? The truth is, this concept of work-life balance is a carefully crafted illusion. It's a mirage we chase in the desert of modern existence, where we're conditioned to believe that with the right techniques, we can achieve a state of perfect equilibrium. But just like any mirage, the closer we get, the more it disappears. And this illusion doesn't just make us chase an impossible dream. It also makes us feel like failures. Because in our pursuit of balance, we're constantly measuring ourselves against a fantasy. We feel guilty for missing a child's school event because of a work deadline. We feel ashamed for skipping a workout because we're too tired. We feel anxious because our personal goals always seem to take a back seat. This isn't just a personal struggle, it's a societal one. Companies promote the idea of work-life balance to attract talent, but in reality, employees are expected to be always available.
Very true.
Social media bombards us with images of people living balanced lives. CEOs who meditate at sunrise, parents who bake with their kids after work, fitness enthusiasts who maintain perfect bodies despite demanding careers. But these are just curated moments, tiny fragments of a much messier reality. And here's the worst part. The pursuit of balance often becomes a burden in itself. We end up
That's very true. When you look at social media, no matter if it's on Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be, you're going to see most of the time these ideas being promoted that you can have and attain all of these worldly success pursuits and achieve all the goals that you dream of while still maintaining enough family time and enough peace of mind, low enough stress level to keep your blood pressure low, your cortisol levels low, so on and so forth. And it's all feeding into the agenda. And this is a lot of times, this is a big problem with how the family unit gets disrupted, because they market more towards women than they do towards men, because women are more impressionable when it comes to buying into these ideas. They want to pitch them the idea that they can have the perfect career while still maintaining and being the perfect soccer mom, still teaching their kids how to bake, still teaching their kids this, that, and the other. When in reality, what you're doing is you're sending your kids off to be raised by somebody else for 8 hours a day, every single day, so that you can chase your career every single day. And they encourage this, and in fact, society actually rewards this disruption of the family unit.
Obsessing over how to balance our lives rather than simply living them. We try to time manage our way to happiness, squeezing our joy into 30-minute slots, while guilt looms over any moment of rest.
Boy, this is very true, and I can say this from a personal aspect. You know, I find myself, I'm very guilty of this. When I'm driving, for example, I will oftentimes, I think, okay, well, I've got 30-minute commute here or 30-minute commute there. So I believe myself, I've also bought into the more is better agenda for so long. I've recently, within the last few months, I've started to cut out a lot of different things, but I would try to squeeze in that during that 30-minute commute, I would try to squeeze in a lecture or squeeze in some type of audio book or something of that nature in order to try to be constantly bettering myself and improving myself. Self-improvement is a myth that I'm starting to see through now and see the reality of things is we are already complete human beings, and our entire purpose in this world, yeah, we can chase worldly pursuits, etc., but just be a human being instead of a human doing. You don't have to micromanage every single minute of your day. Guilt looms over any moment of rest, and that's very true. We've all been taught that. For me, for example, if I miss a workout, I'm hard on myself about it. Oh man, you missed that workout, and that's 2 days in a row. Like, you're not allowed to have 2 rest days. If you have 2 rest days, you're somehow a failure. A lot of times project managers, even employees, when they're off the clock, these days there is no separation between work and personal life. So your bosses will be texting you at work, talking about projects that you did, where is this inventory, where is that inventory, so on and so forth. So it's no wonder that we're extremely stressed.
We allow ourselves. So, what if we're looking at this all wrong? What if the problem isn't our inability to achieve balance, but the very idea of balance itself? What if life isn't meant to be a perfectly balanced scale, but a series of flowing moments, some where work takes the lead, some where family does, and others where self-care demands our focus? As we begin this journey, I want you to question everything you've been told about balance.
Yeah.
What if the very thing you're striving for doesn't exist? What if balance is just a comforting story, one we've told ourselves so we can feel in control? Because in a world that never stops, in a life where priorities constantly shift, perhaps the pursuit of balance is nothing more than a beautifully packaged myth. And today, we're here to uncover the truth. To understand the myth of work-life balance, we must first travel back in time to the heart of the industrial age. This was a world defined by factories, rigid schedules, and a clear divide between work and home. Workers clocked.
Now, if you look at the Industrial Revolution, this wasn't just about big business and big profit. The market as we know it today wasn't flooded with all of these different things that you could buy. For example, you didn't have a flashlight factory and a factory that makes glass bowls and a factory that makes computers and a factory that makes nothing but shirts, etc., etc. You didn't have that. What you had were certain mills, textile mills, for example, that produced one thing, and it was of a necessity. It was more based on necessity than it was on profit. Not that profit wasn't being made. Profit was still a goal, but it shared the forefront with necessity. So households, for example, all had to have clothing in them, right? So these industries started popping up in order to produce these items so that everyone could have some, with profit being the secondary goal. Now, I'm not saying that profit was not primary for a lot of places. I'm sure that it was. Once the money started rolling in and they saw that they could have the best of both worlds, that's when the greed took over. But the Industrial Revolution was about industry growing, but in order to meet the demands of the majority of society at large, rather than just producing mass products in order to gain a profit. That's why a lot of your quality is lost now. I was installing some lights yesterday for my mom, some motion detector solar panels, and the production quality is so cheap. You know, you could barely screw in a screw into wood now on a deck without these pre-packaged screws that they come with completely stripping the heads of them. And that's just she and I had a conversation about it, and that's just a par for the course when it comes to the quality loss in that comes with gaining mass production of items in order to just gain a quick profit. And people keep buying them, and when they keep buying them, it shows these companies that, hey, as long as they're purchasing them, we're going to keep making them cheaply like that. And I swear it's like they have a meeting once a year and they say, how can we cut our losses, how can we increase our profits, and somebody on the screw manufacturing team is like, hey, let's quit making our screws out of metal and let's start making them out of paper. Not literally paper, but it seems like they're paper because they're so cheap quality now. And that's kind of what we're suffering with these days when it comes to production quality versus quantity.
Clocked in at sunrise and clocked out at sunset. The factory bell was a signal. Work was over, and personal life could begin. Life was compartmentalized, and for many, this separation was a necessity. But as the decades passed, society evolved. The industrial age gave way to the information age, and with it came a radical shift. Offices replaced factories, and work became less about physical labor and more about mental exertion. But more importantly, technology began to transform everything. The telephone allowed business conversations to happen across miles. The computer brought work to our desks. And then, the internet did something even more profound. It erased the boundaries of time and space. Suddenly, work was no longer confined to the walls of an office or the hours of a shift. Emails could arrive at midnight, and tasks could follow you home. The smartphone became a portable office, a constant reminder that you were always reachable, always available. The promise of flexibility, which was meant to be a blessing, quickly became a burden. And alongside this technological revolution came the rise of a new cultural phenomenon, hustle culture.
But when it comes to that, the portable office, and laptops and smartphones and things like that, when it comes to working from home, these are really benefits. You can turn this into a benefit if you're able to compartmentalize the way you would be if you were working in an office setting or a factory setting, etc. You have to, as the employee, be able to say, once 5 p.m. hits, the phone goes off. That's it. I'm no longer reachable. And working remotely does have benefits in the flexibility as far as you don't have to travel. I've never seen a work from home place that allows you to make your own schedule. However, they still want you to operate between the hours of such and such and such and such, right? Unless you're a project manager or something of that nature, in which case most of the time you're on salary and you're pretty much on call anyway. So the compartmentalization is still not able to be had, but it does have a lot of benefits if you can work from home. But one of the downsides of that is that you slowly integrate your work practices into your day-to-day life because you're doing this from home. And if you're doing this from home, and if you are integrating your work practices into your day-to-day life, it makes it much harder to not take that business call when you're at the soccer game with your kids, or when you're out to dinner with your husband or your wife, right? So there has to be, you have to have the ability to cut it off. But we as a society have been so indoctrinated with the belief that we are interconnected as long as we stay connected on social media, that it's trained us to naturally be attached to our phones anyway. So when you're on there scrolling through your TikTok or your social media, and then you get an email from work or you get a text message from work, you still are more likely to answer that. And really and truly, it comes into the addiction is with our devices in and of themselves. So you could say, well, I only watch TikTok or I only scroll Facebook. However, as long as that is there, any type of distraction that comes in on that device is going to be still that, a distraction.
We were told that success meant working harder, faster, and longer. Productivity became a badge of honor, and phrases like rise and grind and sleep is for the weak became mantras. The line between work and life blurred. But instead of balance, we found ourselves trapped in a cycle of constant striving. But even as this shift unfolded, society clung to the comforting idea of work-life balance. Companies began to promote it as a perk. Work from home, flexible hours, mental health days. Yet these were often just surface-level solutions to a much deeper problem. The problem of a world where work had become ever-present, seeping into every corner of our lives. The promise of balance, that we could seamlessly juggle career, family, hobbies, and self-care, became a seductive lie. A marketing slogan sold to exhausted workers, a mirage offered to those longing for a sense of control. But beneath it all, one question remained. If the world has changed so much, can the idea of balance still make sense? Perhaps the real problem isn't that we're failing to achieve balance, but that we're chasing a concept that was never meant for this chaotic, interconnected world. Balance. The word itself sounds serene. It conjures images of calm, of steady harmony between work and life, of effortless juggling between professional achievements and personal joy. But beneath this soothing promise lies a harsh reality. The relentless pursuit of balance can become a prison of the mind. Psychology teaches us that expectations shape our experiences, and when we expect our lives to be perfectly balanced, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Each time we prioritize one aspect of life over another, a sense of guilt creeps in.
Not only does a sense of guilt creep in, but the reality of it is is that multitasking it's a misnomer. And what I mean is multitasking is labeled as the ability to handle multiple tasks at the same time. But when you do that, when you try to focus on 2, 3, 4 things at the same time, you are only giving fragments of your attention and your conscious awareness to that individual task, and then you are then rotating it. And as you are giving a fragment of your conscious awareness and attention to task number 1, you are still keeping in the back of your mind that task number 2 needs your attention as well. So what happens is all of the tasks are getting fragments, but none of the tasks are receiving your full attention, your full ability, right? You can't give your full undivided attention. You can't serve 2 masters at the same time, all right? And that goes in all walks of life. If you are chasing the goal of becoming a bodybuilder, for example, then you can't also chase the goal of being lean and fit. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to, in order to become a bodybuilder, you're going to have to go through bulking phases, which are times when you take on copious amounts of weight and you eat ridiculous amounts of calories in order to gain the maximum amount of bulk on your body, and while you're doing that, you're simultaneously having to lift heavier in the gym. So you will sacrifice your cardiovascular health, your flexibility, so on and so forth, in the meantime while you chase that dream. So the reverse is true as well. If you're looking to lean up and you're looking to get your cardiovascular health in order, then you can't chase the goal of becoming a bodybuilder, because you're going to again come into conflict with those two goals, trying to serve those two goals at the same time. And that's the way anything in life is. Whenever we try to serve two masters, one of them will inevitably suffer at the hand of the other.
It's a family dinner because of a work deadline, you're a bad parent. Skip a workout because you're exhausted from work, you're neglecting your health. In the endless game of balance, every choice feels like a betrayal of something else. But guilt is only the beginning. The pursuit of balance can spiral into anxiety, a constant, nagging worry that you're not doing enough. You question yourself. Am I spending enough time with loved ones? Am I achieving enough in my career? Am I neglecting my passions? This anxiety is fueled by an endless loop of self-judgment, where your inner voice becomes your harshest critic. And then comes burnout, the inevitable result of trying to be everything, to everyone, all the time. When we stretch ourselves too thin, trying to live up to the ideal of perfect balance, we eventually break. The energy we once used to chase our goals is replaced by exhaustion, and even the simplest tasks feel overwhelming. But why do we keep chasing balance when it so often leads to this inner conflict? Part of the answer lies in social conditioning. We are bombarded with messages that tell us balance is the key to happiness. Social media shows us perfectly balanced lives. The successful entrepreneur who also has a happy family, the fitness enthusiast who also has a thriving career. But these are illusions, carefully curated to hide the chaos beneath the surface. Yet, despite knowing this, we can't seem to let go. Our minds crave the comfort of control, the belief that with the right strategy, we can avoid the chaos of life. But this...
And you know, oftentimes what happens too in the pursuit of this, when you look at certain career fields, for example, when you look at a heart specialist is a specialist because they have focused the primary attention of their study on every aspect of the heart, right? They didn't pursue orthopedics as a part-time goal and heart surgery and heart-related matters as a part-time goal. They focused their primary aim at specializing in heart health. So anytime that you try to achieve this balance, you are going to lose it. Any professional field like that, bodybuilders, I'll use them again for an example. They're a very prime example. Bodybuilders are the most diligent eaters on the planet, and they're the most diligent schedule keepers I've ever seen on the planet. When you meet an actual bodybuilder who is in competition, they sacrifice everything else to achieve that one goal. They have no misgivings about there ever being any type of balance. They're married to the gym, and they will tell you that. If you're a woman who wants to marry them or be in a relationship with them and you come into their life and you cause them stress, guess what? You're going. You have to go, because any type of stress raises their cortisol level, which affects their gains. This is the reality of the so-called work-life balance, or any type of balance that you're trying to achieve in life. You have to understand that you are going to sacrifice in one area in order for another area to grow, or you're going to have to sacrifice in that area for this area to grow. That's just the way it is. Multitasking, balancing, nothing ever receives your full attention.
This very desire for control is what traps us. We become like tightrope walkers, balancing above an abyss of anxiety, too afraid to fall, too afraid to admit that balance might be impossible.
Perhaps the real question isn't why we fail to achieve balance, but why we continue to believe in it. Because in our obsession with balance, we forget something crucial, that life is meant to be lived, not perfectly managed. What if the problem isn't that we can't achieve balance, but that balance itself is the wrong goal? Balance implies a perfect, equal distribution of time and energy between work and life.
Yes.
A
Yes.
scale where neither side can outweigh the other. But life doesn't work like that. Life is dynamic, ever-changing, a constantly shifting puzzle where priorities are never static. This is where the concept of integration comes in. Instead of trying to achieve a perfect split between work and personal life, integration invites you to let these aspects coexist, to blend rather than separate. It's about creating harmony, not symmetry. Imagine this. You're passionate about writing, but you also have a demanding job. Instead of trying to balance these two by setting strict hours for each, you integrate them. You use your writing skills at work, maybe in storytelling for presentations, and in your personal time, you write for joy. The line between work and passion becomes less rigid, and instead of competing, they complement each other. Integration.
That's why that old saying is there's a quote, I think it was Benjamin Franklin. It said, find a job that you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. That's exactly what that means. You're taking your passion and you're living out your passion in your career field. And a lot of people are going to find joy with different things depending on, your personality and the society that you grew up in, so on and so forth. But once you find that passion, if you can turn that into a reality, I like talking, I like telling stories, I like hearing what other people have to say, I like giving advice. So you can turn that passion into your career field. And it may take time to do that, but that's again goes back to the idea of sacrificing in one area in order that you can grow in another area.
Also means accepting that priorities will shift, sometimes in unpredictable ways. There will be weeks where work takes precedence, a big project, an urgent deadline, and there will be other times when family, health, or personal interests become your primary focus. Integration is not about feeling guilty when one area demands more of your attention. It's about allowing this natural flow without shame. Think of it as a dance, not a tightrope walk. Some days you step closer to work. Other days you lean into personal life. There are no rigid rules, only rhythms. And most importantly, you are the one who decides the tempo. But how does this look in practice? It means designing a life where your values are at the center and your actions align with them. If family is a priority, you might take work calls from home, but also make time for family dinners without feeling torn. If self-care is essential, you might integrate short wellness breaks into your workday. A quick walk, a few minutes of meditation, or simply stretching at your desk. Integration is also about communication, with yourself and with others. Be honest about your priorities, set boundaries, and understand that these boundaries may shift over time. Tell your colleagues when you're unavailable, but also let loved ones know when work demands your focus. In a world that glorifies multitasking and punishes imperfection, integration is a rebellion. It's a choice to let life be messy, to let passions and responsibilities coexist without being forced into separate boxes. It's about creating a life where work and personal joy don't compete, but rather enhance each other. Because maybe, just maybe, the secret isn't finding balance at all. It's building a life where everything that matters has its own place. Not always equal, but always meaningful. So, how do we escape the exhausting chase for balance? How do we free ourselves from the guilt, anxiety, and constant pressure to perfect every aspect of life? The answer begins with a simple but profound realization. Balance doesn't have a universal formula. What works for one person may be chaos for another. Your path is yours alone, and your definition of success must be too. Success isn't about splitting your time evenly between work and personal life, nor is it about being perfect in every role you play. Instead, success is about harmony, the ability to let your priorities shift without guilt, to embrace the ebb and flow of life without feeling like a failure.
Yes.
It means recognizing that some days work will demand more of you, while other days family, health, or personal joy will take the front seat. But how do we put this into practice? It starts with boundaries, clear, honest boundaries that protect your time and energy. At work, this might mean communicating your availability and learning to say no without fear. In your personal life, it means giving yourself permission to step away, to rest, and to be present without distractions. Boundaries are not barriers. They are gateways to a more intentional life. Next, practice presence. When you're at work, be fully there. When you're with loved ones, give them your full attention. Multitasking may seem like a superpower, but it often leaves us disconnected, never truly experiencing anything fully. Presence is a gift you give to yourself and those around you. But perhaps most importantly, redefine success. Instead of measuring it by the hours you work, the money you earn, or the approval you receive, measure it by how aligned your life is with your values. Are you spending time on what truly matters to you? Are you nurturing relationships, exploring your passions, and taking care of your mental and physical well-being? That is true success. And remember, this journey is not about perfection. It's about authenticity. It's about living a life that feels right for you, not one that looks perfect to others. So today, I challenge you to let go of the myth of balance. Stop trying to be perfect at everything. Instead, strive to be present. Prioritize what truly matters, and let the rest fall where it may. If this message resonated with you, take...
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. That was a great video. It's a good reminder of one of the many myriad of myths that we live in today. And a lot of what our mental health problems are stemming from are these ideas that we have been sold. And a lot of times we've been sold these ideas by multimedia corporations in order to further their own agenda, in order to gain on their capitalistic goals. So we have to be mindful of that, and instead we need to strive to first and foremost define what our beliefs and our value systems are and see if they align with what it is that's being asked of us, whether it's by our family, our friends, our employers, or whatever, right? So, the last job that I worked, they seemed to think that it was okay for them to contact me before work, after work, all about scheduling, etc., rather than setting a schedule at the beginning of each week to let you know what your work schedule would be, and not contacting you before or after that, right? And just having the expectation of you to show up. They had to contact you literally every single day, regardless of the times that you said, listen, I have another job that I'm also working. You can't be bothering me while I'm working. Or, I'm with my family. You can't be bothering me while I'm with my family. Whatever. They just didn't respect that. And a lot of times that's what you have these days is employers fail to respect the boundaries that you set. And if people aren't willing to respect the boundaries that you set, it's okay, right? They're allowed to do that, just not with you. You have to be willing to walk away from those people who are not conducive to your growth and your mental health and your achievement and what it is that you're trying to achieve in life. And you also have to be very clear about what your goals are with yourself. if your goal is to have a, $500,000 salary, be the CEO of a large Fortune 500 company or whatever the case may be, then you have to expect that you're going to sacrifice in order to attain that. So that's all I got for right now. I hope you liked it. I will put this link in the description as always. Be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button and share the content with anybody that you think may find it useful or beneficial. Until next time, stay strong as a sunnah.